Good morning. You're very welcome to the UCD Engineering Programme Briefing. My name is Dr. Neal Murphy, and I'm the Programme Director for First Year Engineering, Stage 1 Engineering. And over the next hour and a half or so, I'm going to give you lots of information about your new programme in engineering. You know, when I started off in UCD, it was actually 40 years ago this year, where I was in your position. And I remember at the time I came into to Belfield on the first week, and I couldn't believe how big it was and how intimidating it all was. But you know, I think things have really improved since then. And I think you'll find that the supports that are there for you now are absolutely fantastic. So there's absolutely nothing to be concerned about. So in my role as Programme Director for first year, if you like, I'm your contact point on the academic staff, on the lecturing staff. So if you have any issues or any problems, what I'd encourage you to do is to just send me an email. Here's my address, neil.murphy@ucd.ie. And if I can't answer your questions, I can point you in the right direction towards the person who can. Okay. So other important people to know, useful people, shall we say? Well, first of all, you've already met, I think, the Dean of Engineering, Professor Ahern. And other very important people, obviously, are the staff in the so-called college office, okay, the College of Engineering and Architecture office. So that office is headed up by my colleague, Sue Philpott. And there are various other people who work in that office that are very, very important contacts for you. So we'll go through them in a moment in the next slide. But I just wanted to also point out this very important person here, who's our student advisor for engineering, Dr. Julia Marr. Okay, so any issues, any questions, any problems, that's what Julia is there for. So the college office team then are made up of various people, as you can see. The program and operations manager is Bahini, and her colleague is Shelley Smith. Most of the administrative type problems that you come across, such as, for example, trying to register to a module or whatever, will be dealt with by these people here. Caroline McCann, Claudia Schmidt, and Niamh Fitzgerald. So I suppose the question is, how do you contact these people? Well, this year, there's two ways of contacting them, either by email or face-to-face. So emails, if you like, office hours for email contact are the usual office hours, 8:30 until 4:30, Monday to Friday. However, some people do prefer face-to-face meetings, and particularly if something's a bit hard to explain, it might be easier just to have a chat with the guys in the office. And in that case, the office hours for face-to-face meetings, as you can see, are Monday to Thursday, 10 o'clock in the morning until 1 in the afternoon, and then from 1:30 until 4 in the afternoon. Unfortunately, this year we can't have a drop-in service. You can't just wander in. So you have to make an appointment to have a face-to-face meeting, okay? But that's not a big deal. And also, of course, we've become used to doing everything on Zoom. So the staff in the college office are also happy to arrange online meetings via Zoom. Okay, so how do you request a meeting? Or anything really is done through this so-called portal here. It's the College Connector. So if you literally just go on to that particular website there, fill in the details, the staff will get back to you very quickly. Okay, so there's plenty of information obviously available to you. At this stage, we're more or less finished our orientation week. So you'll probably have seen a lot of this already. I hope you've been actively rummaging around the website and so on, trying to find out as much information as you can. But there's plenty of advice online. Typically frequently asked questions, for example, related to COVID, can be found here, this location here, this link. And how do you access amenities, supports? Again, all described quite well in this link here. So plenty of information. There is actually a new students website as well. And it's quite likely that all the questions you might have, your typical questions, will be answered on this website. So again, I encourage you to just go in there and have a look. Okay, there is a welcome booklet as well. This, you may have been shown this already, but this can be downloaded from the website, and it deals with all the common introductory things like how you get registered for your modules, how do you get your computer connected, IT services, what fees will be due, what societies you can join, campus life, and so on. So have a look at that, and and take it all in. Okay, so there is also an engineering website for you guys for stage 1, which is obviously very important. And you see EA College here, that stands for Engineering and Architecture College Office. And so they have a very dedicated website, particularly for engineering students. So again, that's a very important one to look at. Okay, registration can be difficult and tricky because you're not used to it. It's the first time you'll have done something like this. So, there are nice how-to guides for registration. How do you register online and so on. And again, these are available at this location. If you have issues with that, as I say, the best thing to do then is to contact our colleagues in the college office, and they'll help you to complete your registration. There's a few important dates that you always have to bear in mind. First of all, that the online registration closes on Friday, the 8th of October. Okay, so it doesn't give you too long to get your registration completely sorted out. Now, the important thing there is that after that date, any trimester 1 modules, any of these autumn modules, which you drop after that date, will be subjected to fees and will appear on your academic record. So if you decide, for example, that you don't want to do a particular module after that date, after all, as it were, it still appears on your record as being something you tried and didn't complete or whatever. So it's important to get everything sorted out properly by Friday the 8th, okay? Your fees have to be paid by Sunday the 26th, which is this coming Sunday, and your first day of lectures, as you probably know, is Monday the 27th. And those lectures will be back to normal in the sense that they will be on face-to-face on campus, okay? So that's a little bit about the supports that's available to you. The next thing I guess we need to talk about is the what modules you'll be studying this year. Okay, so I suppose that's why we're calling it a program briefing, because really it's mainly the academic side of things that we're going to be talking about here today. Okay, so the way the UCD system is set up, first of all, rather than calling them terms, we now call them trimesters. Okay, so we have an autumn trimester between September and December. Then we have a spring trimester between January and May. And then we have a summer trimester between May and September. Okay, from your point of view, most of the vast majority of things that happen in the autumn and in the spring. Okay, so in the autumn trimester, which is this current trimester, you'll be faced, if you like, with taking these 6 modules. Okay, now these modules are core modules. Okay, now core, again, it's all about the language, new language really for you. You've got core modules, which are ones you have to take. There are options and there are electives, okay, which we'll come to later on. But for now, core options here, these are the ones you have to take, okay? Now, looking down through the list, you see you're going to do chemistry, creativity and design, electronic and electrical engineering, introductory calculus, which is mathematics, of course, for engineers, Introduction to Engineering Computing, and Physics, okay? And this is going to be Physics for Engineers 1. And we'll see that after Christmas, you'll be doing Physics for Engineers 2. Okay, so the way the system is set up, under normal circumstances, everybody does 6 modules per trimester, okay? And that's considered to be a full workload. Many of these topics might look familiar to you from the Leaving Cert. So some people will come in with having done, say, chemistry at Leaving Cert, or physics, or both. And most of you will have covered maths to some extent in your Leaving Cert. Some things will be new, okay? So some familiar and some not so familiar. So for example, creativity and design is an enjoyable module which introduces you to design. And that module is basically completely a continuous assessment, as you'll see. So it's all about working in groups in a studio, trying to come up with ideas and designs for different challenges. Something like electronic and electrical engineering deals with electrical circuits, for example, and that is something that you may not have come across before in school. And then some people have had some knowledge or some background in engineering computing. We all use computers, of course, all the time nowadays, but have you ever tried to program a computer? Possibly not. So we felt that every engineering student should be introduced to how to program computers and how to use them to solve problems, really from day one in their program, in their engineering program. So we've introduced this module just a couple of years ago, actually, as a core module. And what you're going to do here is, first of all, you're going to learn about the principles of computer programming and problem solving, but using software Excel, Microsoft Excel, first of all, and then scientific software called MATLAB, which is a nice high-level software which you can write programs quite easily and get nice graphics and so on out as your output. So that hopefully you'll find that interesting and enjoyable. Just to say that the labs and tutorials, what we've decided to do for this trimester is you will be assigned your lab slots and your tutorial slots. So you don't have to worry about any of that this trimester, okay? So really, there's really nothing to be decided from you for this trimester. It's all there for you. There is, okay, elective modules are, if you like, a free choice. You decide what you'd like to do based on quite a free choice across the university. But we don't have any elective modules this trimester, okay? So you don't have to worry about electives this trimester. Okay, so the timetable then, what you'll find is that UCD engineering is a very busy thing to be doing. It's a busy program, okay? We set up our lectures, your timetable that you'll get once you finish registration, you'll get your personal timetable, okay? And by scanning down there, you'll see that every one of these 6 modules has weekly lectures, of course. Some have 1, some have 2, and some have 3 lectures per week. You'll also be told about any on-campus activities. All our on-campus activities, such as, for example, attending labs, anything really that's inside, you will require a face mask, okay? The normal practice these days. And make sure that you check your timetable and keep an eye for updates, because sometimes maybe in the first week something has to be changed at short notice, and just keep an eye on things. Your lecturer would email you about any changes that might be there in lecture times or whatever. Okay, so just keep an eye on your emails. That's the only way that we as staff can contact you. Okay. So running through the modules then that you're going to be attempting this trimester, The first one is chemistry for engineers. And again, this module does not assume that you've done chemistry before. Okay, so it's treated as an introduction. So if you have done Leaving Cert chemistry, you will find this relatively easy at the beginning, while everybody else, if you like, catches up with you. But the way it's been set up is it's a 12-week trimester, of course, a 12-week teaching trimester, 12 weeks of lectures. So typically for the first 6 weeks, you might see things that you might have done before for the Leaving Cert, but maybe at a higher level. But then for the last 6 weeks, typically there will be material there that's new for everybody. Okay, so there will be a challenge there as well, even if you're an expert in chemistry coming in. Okay. For chemistry, you've got lectures, as you'll see from your timetable. I'm just running down through these different times, but the lectures are typically for chemistry on Tuesdays and Thursdays. They're at 9 o'clock in the morning, so that means you have to get up early and make your way in for them. There is a tutorial on Thursdays. Tutorials, by the way, what's the difference between lectures and tutorials? Well, typically in a lecture, you're talking about a large number of people. Okay, so our current count on the number of students in first year engineering is over 350 students. So that's a large number of students to be sitting in one hall listening to one lecturer talking about chemistry. And if you have any questions or whatever, it can be a little bit intimidating. You know, if you're sort of way up at the back of this huge lecture theatre, you don't really feel confident maybe to stick your hand up and shout down a question to the lecturer. But tutorials are a different matter. They're a much smaller group. Okay, and you know, the idea there in any module is that you can have a much smaller group with you know, perhaps being given by maybe the lecturer themselves, or maybe some postgraduate students who are acting as teaching assistants, or TAs as we call them. And you know, the idea there is that you will be able to ask questions, that it won't be as intimidating, and that it's more like, I suppose, the classrooms that you're used to in school. So it's very important that if a tutorial is scheduled, that you know, you attend anything that you're supposed to attend in the line of tutorials, because they're there to help you. Okay. Now, with the science subjects, physics and chemistry, there will be labs, which is great. And in fact, in chemistry this year, each student will have 4 different laboratory experiments. Okay, they're scheduled actually for a 3-hour period, so they're quite an interesting lab experience. You will be given introductions to lab safety, obviously. Health and safety is a major concern in the university, of course, and we go out of our way to show you how to do everything safely, and give you teach you accordingly. Okay, you will need, as it says here, to read the lab manual. You'll need to buy your PPE, okay, your personal protective equipment, which usually takes the form of a white coat, a lab white coat, and safety goggles. You'll need them for all your labs in all your different modules, so it's a good investment to buy them. You'll need to buy them. They're essential. Okay, and you can get them in the Students' Union shops around the campus. So, you know, every module has its own things that you need to do. For example, with chemistry, you need to take a quiz, for example, on safety before you're allowed into your lab and so on. But that will all be explained by the lecturer. Okay, the next one we have then is creativity in design. And this is, as I said, is, well, there is a formal lecture on a Tuesday at 10 o'clock in the morning. And interestingly enough, that's the topic of that particular slot is sketching. So freehand sketching. Now that doesn't mean that we all have to be great artists. Okay, most engineers are not great artists. But, you know, if you're trying to explain to somebody an idea that you have, we still tend to scribble things down on a piece of paper and draw little sketches and so on. So that's just this particular instruction is trying to help you to do that in a, you know, I suppose, a professional way. Okay. And then in the afternoons, so also then on Wednesdays at 2 o'clock, you will have sort of a formal lecture where you're all in the lecture theatre, and the lecturer will tell you about whatever it is you're going to be doing that day. And then you break out into studios at 3 o'clock, and you actually spend the rest of the afternoon on Wednesdays working in groups on the particular assignment of the day. So that's quite an interesting day. Okay, electronic and electrical engineering. Again, you've got 3 lectures a week here with tutorials as well. And you also have 2 labs. Okay, so every student will attend 2 different labs to try and put into practice some of the theory that's being discussed in class. Introduction to calculus for engineers, again, mathematics. You've got lectures on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. You've also got tutorials. Obviously, there's no laboratory side to mathematics, but instead, I suppose they would be replaced by tutorials that you have here. So again, I encourage you to go to the tutorials, to try the assignments, to work through the problem sheets and so on. It's the only way you're going to learn how to master any of these topics. Okay, we've already mentioned briefly about the introduction to engineering computing. This is set up so that you have lectures on Thursday at 11, so 11 to 12 or so. Well, they're really around, they're usually 50-minute lectures, but this trimester we've been asked to keep the lectures to 45 minutes, just to allow people to swap around in between lectures without, to give people more time to move around between lectures due to the restrictions on movement with COVID, to stop mingling and so on. So there'll be sort of 45-minute lectures. And the way that's going to work on a Thursday at 11, and then you can have a break for an hour for lunch, and then you come back at 1. And then, if you like, during the lecture, the lecturer will go through for example, how to use Excel or how to use MATLAB to do a particular thing. And then you get to put that into practice. So your labs, your computer-aided laboratories for this subject are basically in the computer rooms. So you're sitting there in front of either your laptop or the computers in the room itself, and you would try and work through a computer program or whatever that you're trying to write, and there will be demonstrators and teaching assistants floating around to give you a hand with that. Okay, Physics for Engineers 1. This is the first. If you look at the list, if you like, of the syllabus for physics, it's almost like your full Leaving Cert type syllabus. Where you're looking at, say, in Physics 1, you've got mechanics, you've got the theory of heat, and sound, and waves, and so on. And then in Physics 2, after Christmas, you've got things like nuclear physics and so on. So again, this one is it's quite challenging. And just because you've done physics for the leaving, don't be complacent, because the lecturer does expect you to engage at a higher level. So even though you might be talking about the same type of topics that you might have covered in the Leaving Cert, you definitely are expected to engage at a higher level. And in fact, the lecturer told me that it's no disadvantage if you haven't done physics for the Leaving Cert. So don't worry about that if you haven't done physics before. There's no people who do physics who don't, if you like, haven't done physics before, do just as well as those who have. So there's nothing to worry about there, but you do need to work hard at that. Okay, so then, of course, how are you assessed? So, well, the assessment is split up between final exam and continuous assessment. Okay, and as you can see here, different modules have different weightings for the final exam. Okay, so for example, with your engineering computing, you're spending a lot of time during the year writing programs and doing your assignments like that. And actually, the final exam is only worth 30%, whereas your continuous assessment is actually worth 70% in that one. Okay. Similarly with chemistry, you can see that most of the others, the final exam was worth around 60 or 70%, and the rest then, the rest 40% or so is worth is continuous assessment. In chemistry, it would be things like lab reports and so on that you have to write, having attended the labs. Okay, so do make sure that you complete all the continuous assessment, the labs, the assignments, the reports, and so on, to the very best of your ability. Okay, because what that, of course, means is that you're not relying on the final exam to get you through at the end of the day. Okay, you should nearly have it so that it's in the bag already, nearly before you get to the final exam, because you've done such a good job with your continuous assessment and handed up good quality work. Okay, so that would be a tip, I suppose, I would have for you. Okay, so I suppose all of this stuff is new terminology. What is continuous assessment? Well, it can take many forms. It could take, for example, midterm tests, for example, where a test might be given to you either in class during a lecture. It might be an online quiz, okay, which might be something like a multiple choice quiz, and so on. You can have open book assignments where you literally go and do some homework where you can refer to your books and so on. So lots and lots of different types of continuous assessment, as you'll see. We use a thing called Brightspace. It's our virtual learning environment. So if you like, that's the online system that we all use as lecturers. And each module has its own Brightspace page, if you like. So you get on there, and within that Brightspace page, you can see, for example, all your lecture notes. Perhaps your lecture slides have been uploaded by the lecturer. Details about your next assignment and so on will all be there. So I'm sure somebody will show you how to fire up Brightspace. It's done through UCD Connect. Okay, now the exam period at Christmas, if you like, the end of the autumn trimester, takes place over approximately a 2-week period. Okay, from starting at the 10th of December, running up to the 22nd. These will generally take place down in the RDS in Ballsbridge or in the exam centre in Blackrock and Carysford Avenue. And what you'll see is that the vast majority of UCD exams are 2 hours long. Okay, so that might be a little bit shorter than you're used to in the Leaving Cert, for example. So 2 hours is actually not very long to write a lot of stuff and to answer a lot of questions. So what I'd suggest there is that you, as time goes on, that you practice past exam papers, so that you're getting used to not only answering the questions but answering them nice and quickly, so that you have enough time in the exam to write down everything you want to write down. Okay, at the end of the spring trimester, the exams, as you can see here, take place over the period from the 3rd of May to the 14th of May. Things are a little bit different in this, because we have a nice period here where we have a study period, first of all, from the 7th of March to the 20th of March. So that's a 2-week period in the middle where there's no lectures. So that's a nice period actually for people to catch up, on things like assignments and that may be due. We don't have that nice 2-week period in the autumn, okay, because unfortunately, there's less time, I suppose, because we have that hard deadline at Christmas and we want to get the exams done before Christmas. So we can't afford to have that 2 weeks this trimester. But next trimester, there will be that nice break in the middle, after, well, around approximately in the middle of the trimester. Okay, and then in each case you have a week off, if you like, before your exams start in both of these trimesters, and you can spend a few days revising and so on. Okay, getting ready for your exams. Okay, so that's what you have to look forward to this trimester. And already I'm tired even talking about it. There is quite a lot in there, as you can see. So, I hope you're up to the challenge of working hard and playing hard as well, but still working hard. Okay, so in the spring then, we have a slightly different setup in terms of modules. So we have four of these modules here in the spring are core modules, okay? And then to make up the 6, we have one so-called option and one free choice elective, okay? So these 4 you don't have a choice in. So physics 2, as I mentioned, that's if you like, the continuation of that physics course, where we do things like nuclear physics and quantum physics and so on, quantum mechanics. But we also do things like energy engineering. So that's obviously a hugely important subject these days. So that, for example, the science behind energy is thermodynamics, and you'll be shown all about that in that particular module. Maths again will continue after Christmas, but a different topic. So while you had calculus before, this trimester, next trimester in the spring you'll have algebra, so linear algebra, matrices, and so on next trimester. And then this one, mechanics for engineers, is a little bit like applied maths for the Leaving Cert. Okay, so again, if you've done applied maths, you'll have a bit of a head start there. If you haven't, don't worry. Nothing is assumed again, and we start from the basics, work our way up. Okay. Now, these options. So an option is supposed to give you your first flavor, if you like, of maybe you're interested in a particular type of engineering, and this allows you to get a taste of that, if you like, by choosing a module that's relevant or aligned to your particular interest. Okay, so we'll talk about the different streams in second year in a few minutes, but for example, if you think you're interested in doing biomedical engineering, there's an option here called Understanding Human Disease. So that kind of gets you into that whole way of thinking. If you're interested in chemical engineering, we have a thing called Chemical Engineering Process Principles. If you're interested in civil engineering or structural engineering with architecture, we have the engineering and architecture of structures. And if you're interested in mechanical or electronic engineering, you might be interested in computer science for engineers. Okay, so that's an additional computing module. You had your introduction in the first trimester. This is a different one in the second trimester. Okay, and then the thing is that you can also choose in first year, you can choose one free elective, which is basically any module you like from across the university. So sometimes sometimes they choose a module from within engineering, maybe something that you find interesting, like robotics or something. Sometimes people want to try a language, or they've studied a language in school and they'd like to continue it, so they might take a language module. Or sometimes, you might just have an interest in something, some aspect of science or something, and you could take the appropriate elective in that. Okay. You will need to register for your practicals and your tutorials, what time slots you prefer. At the moment, this is actually not available to you just right now. I think it's been blocked, but this will become available to you in the next few days, and you can then go in and choose which days you'd like your tutorials to suit your life, as it were. Okay. So how do you choose your option modules? Again, the reason we're talking about the spring modules now is that you are asked to at least tentatively register for these things. You can change your option registration after Christmas, just before the next trimester starts, but it's as well to put your name down for one of them now. And as I say, what will be covered in each of these modules is just briefly described here. I'll let you read that yourselves. And again, who should take it, and again, if you know at this stage that you think you might like, mechanical engineering, that that's great. You might want to choose one of these based on that. But otherwise, I would suggest you just choose which one you like the sound of, really, at this point. Okay, and then you have the last one you've got to choose is an elective, so-called free elective. And again, you can either choose from within engineering or outside of engineering altogether. So within engineering, here's a list of what we call in-program electives. So you'll see here, these are the 4 that we had listed as the options. So if you, for example, you just can't decide, you can't narrow it down to one and you'd like 2 of them, you could actually take one of these as your option and one of them, a different one, as your elective, if that's what you'd like to do. Alternatively, there are a few others. For example, materials. If you're interested in materials, which I think most people are interested in materials, there's a very general materials module here. It's called a so-called discovery module. That's the code here, is discovery. And this discovery modules are they're set up and geared towards people from any background. So, somebody who's in archaeology might be interested in materials, and they could take this discovery module as well. There's another one here, another discovery module that is run from engineering, energy, climate, and policy. So again, very topical topic, and so on. So, have a look at those lists, and think about what elective you might be interested in. Okay, so finally then, the creativity and design module. That's going to be starting obviously next week, like everything else. And the lecturer has asked you to buy a few bits and pieces to bring into that module before you start. Okay, so as I said, the sketching starts on Tuesday. So before Tuesday, if you can, maybe on Monday, if you could buy these particular bits and pieces here. So for example, in the Students' Union shop, and you'll be shown where that is, you can buy a pack, all packed up, if you like, for €9.50. Okay, which has all the bits and pieces, lots of bits and pieces you need. Okay, and there's a list of items here as well that you need to bring in, things like a pencil sharpener, various types of pencils, sketchbooks, and so on. All the sort of things you might need for a sketching class or a design session. Okay. Also, you will be working in groups in your creativity module. And as it says, additionally, for your group work, the following equipment may be helpful for prototype creation. So for making little models and so on of your designs. It says this list is not exhaustive and may be replaced by other common household items. So things like colored markers, plasticine, colored card, post-its, scissors, masking tape, stapler, and so on. Just, I suppose, things that you might use to make a very simple little model of something you're designing. Okay. So, so getting back then to sort of more general stuff, most of these modules, well, all the modules have a code in front of them. So there's a name of the module, and then there's a code. And the code reflects, if you like, the level of the module. Okay. All of the modules that you'll be doing this year are introductory level, and they would be level 1. Okay. And as you can see, as you go through your program, second year, third year, and so on, and maybe do your masters, the levels go up. Okay. And reaches, if you end up doing a PhD, you might be taking level 5 doctoral level modules. Okay. There's another phrase that we use a lot, and that's about credits. And credits, so-called European Credit Transfer System is in operation, which is the ECTS, which basically allows people to move between different universities in Europe. And it's like a currency, really, in academic terms. So if you say that I've done a 5-credit module in Dublin, that sort of means something when you go to, Germany, for example. It's like a way of aligning the standard and the amount of work that's involved in a particular module. Okay, so each 5-credit module. So most of the modules that you'll be dealing with this year, all of them, as far as I know, will be 5-credit modules. Okay, and what does that mean? It typically means, if you look up the module descriptor on the UCD website, you just literally just put in the code name into Google and put in UCD. It'll bring you to the module descriptor, and that explains exactly what the module is about, what you'll be teaching, or sorry, what you'll be learning, how you'll be assessed, and so on. And what you'll see there is also the amount of hours that the lecturer reckons that you're going to need to spend to master that particular module. Okay, and in general, according to this European system, a 5-credit module corresponds to between 100 and 125 hours of student effort. Okay, which is a lot, obviously. And that includes everything, of course. That includes attending lectures, your tutorials, your practical work, your time spent on assignments, studying, obviously, the material, preparing for exams, doing exams, and so on. So a total effort of around 100 hours. Okay, and you've got 6 of them. Okay, so if you do the maths, even taking, if you take your typical trimester, you know, we've got 12 weeks of teaching usually. Now I know this trimester, you guys are only going to have 10 weeks of teaching because of the way things turned out. But in general, from now on, you'll have 12 weeks of teaching. You'll have 1 week revision, and you'll have 2 weeks of exams typically. So that's kind of a 15-week period from start to finish, say in the spring. And, you know, in that case, this implies taking 6 of these modules actually works out as an average of around 40 to 50 hours per week of overall effort. So it's the only reason I'm pointing this out to you is that it's a 40-hour week job. In other words, it's a full-time job being a student of engineering. Okay, and you know, I appreciate that everybody, a lot of people need to get a part-time job, for example, to get some money together and so on. But what I would say to you is that really try and limit the hours that you spend working outside in Duns or wherever. You know, maybe limit it to some time at the weekend or whatever. But don't let, you know, really try not to let your part-time work take over your week or take over your evenings, because you're not going to get, you know, you're not going to be able to put in this 40 hours that you need to put in to your study. Okay, and then when I suppose you also add in you know, social life and sports and all the rest of it, it's a very busy full week. Okay, so just try and manage your time is really the most important thing. Okay, so sometimes I'm asked if any advice for, you know, somebody starting off, and I think the best advice I could give you is to, first of all, to attend everything. Okay, I mean, it sounds obvious, but like if you in school, if you're doing your leaving cert in non-COVID times, obviously, and you didn't bother coming into class, you know, how do you think you'd get on in you know, leaving cert maths? I don't think you'd do very well. So why do you think you'd get on well in university by not attending? So it's really, really important to attend everything, your lectures and your tutorials. I suppose one of the good things that came out of COVID is that a lot of the lecturers became quite used to recording lectures using this thing called Zoom. And so whilst I think it's not required, but it's certainly recommended that lecturers will put up recorded versions of their lectures for you on this Brightspace page. So if you do happen to miss a live lecture, you can hopefully look back on it, but you can't really beat being there. Okay, you can ask your friend, what does that mean, you know, or get clarification on something. And anyway, you know, we've all experienced a year of sitting at home in our bedrooms, attending lectures, and it's just fun. Okay, the next thing to do, I would say, is to try and get as good a grade as you can in your continuous assessment. As I mentioned already, You've got lab reports and assignments and computer programs and designs and all sorts of things to do. And if you aim for an A in all of those things, just basically by trying to do them as well as you can in the time available. Don't spend overly long on them because you don't have too much time to spend, but just do your best and try and get as good a grade as possible. That will set you up nicely, okay? What I've typically found in the past is that if somebody does the final exam and finds the subject quite difficult and maybe fails the exam itself, it's 40% is the pass mark for the exam. So let's say you really struggled and you only got 30% in the exam. Normally, you might think I failed that, but if you've done well in your coursework and so on, that can be enough to bring you into the pass zone, if you like. So you actually end up passing overall. So that's really important that you do all of your assignments, do them well, and that'll get you through if you're struggling. Okay. I think being organized is something that you have to be as well. You get used to college life and you'll settle into it. But make your typical plan for the week and stick with it, whatever that means. Okay, whether you go to the library to study for a couple of hours in the evening or whatever way you do it, just have a plan, get into a routine, and stick with it. And also, then at the end of the day, you're going to have to do these exams, their final exams, in December. And so what I would do is I would download any recent exam papers. All of those papers are available to you on the UCD website. I'm sure you'll be shown where they are. But just download them and have a look at them, and then use them as a study guide when you're trying to prepare for the exams. And do that sort of early on. Don't wait till the very end to do that. Do it in the first few weeks. And then at least you can see what's going to be expected of you. And then you can study and learn the subject accordingly. Okay? Now, the other thing is that you have to pass every module. Okay? So there's no escape, effectively. And that can be difficult, obviously. Some people find some modules very difficult, much more difficult than others. And so that's a challenge. Now, what happens if you don't pass? Okay, well, it's not the end of the world because you do get another opportunity to take it again. So the way it works is that, let's just say you fail physics in December. What you can do is you can take a so-called resit in physics next trimester. Okay, now that's of course not ideal because next trimester you have your full list of modules that you're supposed to be doing, and you will be doing anyway. So these are like additional things that you're going to have to do to try and pass physics or pass whatever it was next trimester again. But there is a thing called a resit, and that is, if you like, a second chance at trying to pass the module. Okay, so don't worry if you don't pass it first time round. Sometimes it takes people a year or two to get into university and the way it is and the life and so on. And everybody is not perfect, so people do fail from time to time. Now, the grades, I think possibly what you'll find about university is that's different from school, is that the grades that you get will typically, you might find, are a bit lower than you were getting in school. Okay, I mean, you're all very good. You've all got good points coming in here. You're all obviously good students, and you're probably used to getting lots of A's and H1s and all the rest of it in your leaving cert tests and exams and so on. Here, the grades are ranging from, as you can see here, it's more like the old-fashioned way actually in terms of the leaving cert grades, A+ down to D-. And you can kind of see that in general, an A is excellent, a B is very good, C is good, and a D is acceptable. So if you do a good job on a module, you'll probably get a C. Now, if this was in school and you got the equivalent kind of middle of the range grade, you might be very disappointed. Okay, so I'm just trying to kind of mark your card really, that it's not going to be all about A's, and A's are hard to come by in college. Okay, but obviously if you work hard, you will get them, but just don't be expecting them. That's all I'm saying. Obviously there are fail grades, anything below Typically, in terms of percentages, a pass grade is 40%, and anything below that is a fail. Okay, now there is a thing also called the grade point average, the GPA. You may have heard of it. And the GPA is basically like a number that is associated with every grade for every module that you do. And so it's like a numerical value that's associated with the C plus or a B minus or whatever it is. And as you move through college, you obviously accumulate a grade point average that you get for a given year, or indeed for your entire program. And at the end of the day, you know, when you graduate, finally, when you graduate with your degree, you know, you might have heard people getting first class honors or second class honors or whatever. The grade of honors that you get is actually linked to the GPA, you know. So these are all, I suppose, quite theoretical things for you now, but it's important that you pay attention a little bit to this as time goes on. For example, if you're doing, say, a 4-year Bachelor of Engineering degree, the degree honors classification will be based on 70% based on your final year and 30% based on your penultimate year, the second last year. So if that was a 4th year, then 30% of the degree grade, if you like, a degree honors degree would be based on 3rd year. So, you know, in other words, don't leave it all till the end, because there is a weighting for different years as well. So that's all a little bit technical maybe, but just to point it out. Okay, so here we go, your first class honors. If you ended up with a GPA, grade point average, of greater than 3.68, you'd be awarded first class honors for your degree. And depending on the other values you get, you end up with either second class honors, grade 1 or grade 2, and a pass overall. Okay. Now, there is another thing, I suppose, to think about down the line a little bit, obviously, and that's, you know, your professional engineering qualifications. And if you want to work as a professional engineer, you will probably become a chartered engineer. Just like you've heard of chartered accountants, we also have chartered engineers. And the awarding body for that is the Irish institution called Engineers Ireland. And they're the professional body that controls these things in this country. Now, in order to become a chartered engineer, the requirement is that you must have a minimum of 4 years postgraduate training after you finished UCD. And generally speaking, as it says here, engineers graduating from 2013 onwards will need a 5-year accredited master's degree or equivalent. Okay, so the only reason I'm bringing this up now is that you might want to be thinking during your first year. You might want to think about, do I want to leave UCD with a bachelor's degree after 4 years, or do I want to continue and do a 5th year and finish with a master's degree? Okay, so we've got plenty on offer in terms of the degree programs that you can choose from. As you know, first year is a common year, so everybody's in first year, and then at the end of first year, you start making decisions about what type of engineering you'd like to do. Okay, so that's good, I think, because it means you don't have to worry about that now. So, or at least before you come in, because it's very difficult for somebody to know whether they want to do biomedical engineering or mechanical engineering when you're still at school. How would you know? So these are some of the things that are on offer to you. Typically, we either have 4 years bachelor's degrees or 5 years master's degrees. Okay, if you do put in your 5 years here, you not only get your master's of engineering, your ME degree, but you also get a bachelor's degree as well. So, for example, most people would probably take this one, where you end up with a so-called BSc, Bachelor of Science, of Engineering Science. And that's awarded, if you like, for the first 3 years of your program. And then the ME degree is the final 2 years. So you're here for 5 years, and that's, if you like, for your first 3 years, and this is for your last 2 years. So anyway, there's plenty of time to find out about all of these things in due course. In fact, this is the pathways to either a bachelor's or a master's degree. And you can see that things can become quite complicated as time goes on. You're here in stage 1, common modules, as we've discussed. And then in stage 2, you make a decision as to which one of these areas you'd like to specialize in, okay? And then, so there's about 5 or 6 there to choose from. And then at the end of year 3, you then decide whether you want to do a master's or whether you want to finish with a bachelor's, okay? And if you want to do a master's, as you can see, there's a very long list of masters of engineering degrees that you can do. Okay, so for example, the BE degrees that you can do here in UCD, you can either leave with a BE in biomedical engineering, chemical and bioprocess engineering, civil engineering, electrical engineering, electronic engineering, and mechanical engineering. Okay, one thing that people are always interested in, I think, is can I spend some time abroad? You know, is there a facility for me to do an Erasmus exchange or something within this program? And the answer to that is yes, of course there is. And we do have a very vibrant study abroad year, which typically students take in their 3rd year, actually. Okay, now not everybody has to take it, and it's not for everybody. But if you are keen to do it, it certainly is available for you. And you can see here, these are the locations of our partner universities that our current students go to. So you can see that they are indeed quite widely spread across Europe and the United States, as well as Australia and Canada. So there are just a few things I think that you need to think about here if you're keen to think about going abroad in year 3, stage 3. You do have to do quite well in your exams, okay, in order to be allowed go. Because the reason behind that is that if you're struggling and failing lots of subjects here in UCD, you know, we're not happy to send you off to Germany or somewhere, and you know, you might really struggle over there. Okay, so you have to be basically doing quite well, and what that means basically is that typically you don't get less than a C- in any core module. Okay, so that's a simple message. There's a bit more to it than that, but that's a simple message. If you want to go abroad, you're going to need to get decent grades and nothing less than a C-, okay, in your core modules. So hopefully, if you bear that in mind, it might give you some motivation, for example. Okay, obviously we've got EU exchanges to an EU country or a non-EU. So the non-EU, for example, US, Canada, China, Singapore, Australia, and New Zealand. And we've got lots of partners as well in European universities. Okay, if you are interested in the rules about these exchanges, there is a link here that we've put in, and you can have a look at that in your own time, obviously. Okay, as part of your master's degree, if you decide to stay on for the 5 years, you can see that there is a long list, as we mentioned, of master's degrees. Very, very interesting. Lots of different areas here. You know, it's diverse as optical engineering or electrical power engineering or whatever. Okay, but again, that's all down the line for you. I suppose a more obvious thing as well, at the end of 1st year, you're going to have to choose what type of engineering, what type of stream would you like to choose. And we do help you with that. Okay, we run these information sessions, both this trimester and next trimester, so both autumn and spring. And typically, each of the disciplines, like such as mechanical engineering or civil or electronic or chemical, will run one of these sessions, and typically might have some speakers coming in from the outside, graduates in these areas, to tell you a little bit about what they do, what their life is like. And then you can also, you might also be introduced to some students in later years, second, third, fourth years, people who maybe are doing their masters at the moment and so on. And they can tell you a little bit about their experiences and so on. So at the end of all these information sessions, I hope you will be in a position to decide, yeah, I know now that I want to do civil engineering. And we ask you then to make your choice, to fill in your choice at the end of your first year. And then we can plan if everybody, if all 350 of you want to do civil engineering, obviously the civil engineering school needs to know about that. So that's why we ask you to make your choice at the end of this year. Okay, so keep an eye out for those information sessions. The library is a very important resource, obviously. It's got a fantastic website. It's now got a really good collection of books, both physical and e-books, electronic books. And it's fantastic. Anytime you're ever trying to do any research or look anything up or refer to books or whatever, you will be going straight to the library webpage. A lot of people use the library also for study spaces. Just to point out that there are study spaces available for this, but you do need to book your space. Okay, so you book your place, and then you can do that through the library website. So I'd like to reserve a space for tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock. And then when you show up, as it says here, please sit only in the seat that you've booked, because obviously otherwise there'll be chaos. Okay. There is a student desk as well, which is for general sort of administrative type things, official documents. If you need a document to say you're a student at UCD or whatever, there's a thing called the student desk. Because of COVID, we don't have a walk-in facility at the moment, but if you need to contact the student desk, you can just do it through this web page here. Okay, and again, we're nearly done. You'll be glad to hear. So the way we communicate with you, the way the university communicates with you is through your UCD email address. Okay, so your UCD Connect is your email address. And so what I'd say to you is it's really important that you're constantly checking that. So you might have your personal email as well, but do set your phone so that it also checks your UCD account as well all the time. Okay, and again, of course, it's just a reminder here to, when you're setting up your UCD mail account, to change your password to something secure because of the risk of hacking and so on. Again, all indoor activities, you need to wear a mask, so don't forget to wear your mask in on Monday, to bring your mask, or have a few spares in your bag, because you're bound to end up somewhere where you need a mask and you've forgotten it. So do have plenty of them around the place. We're really lucky this year now again that we can have full attendance in lecture theatres. We don't need to worry about 2 meter spacings or anything like that. But the ventilation and so on, the lecture theatres are well ventilated. Even though many of them don't have windows, they do have air conditioning systems. So they have lots of air handling systems in the background, with full CO2 monitors and so on in the ducts. Okay, you may not see them, but they're in the ducts where the air is being circulated, and keeping an eye and making sure that the airflow is correct for the number of people in the room. But the one restriction we do have is that you have to wear a mask during lectures, okay? And we won't allow you to come into the lecture without your mask. Okay, so I think I've bored you enough at this point, hosed you down with information. My office, in case you're ever looking for me, it's in the Engineering and Materials Science Centre, otherwise known as the Engineering Building. I'm on the 3rd floor, room 313, as you can see there. But the easiest way to contact me is by email, and this is me here, neal.murphy@ucd.ie. And if you have any questions or queries, it's just nice to have somebody that you can ask, and that's kind of what I'm there for. Okay, so thank you very much for your attention. I'll leave you with this picture here, something to think about. Can you imagine being the engineer involved in charge of this bridge project, where maybe you started from one side of the river and the other side separately, and then look what happens, they don't quite meet up properly in the middle. So trust me, I'm an engineer. Okay, thank you very much, and looking forward to meeting you all in person next week or whenever. Okay, thank you very much.